Welcome to Paranormal Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker, and in today's episode, strange lights hover over dense forests and massive footprints vanish into the mist. For decades, people have reported seeing unidentified flying objects and elusive ape-like creatures in the same places at the same time. Coincidence? Or something more? Tonight, we pull back the curtain on one of the strangest overlaps in paranormal history, when Bigfoot and UFOs appear together. In the rugged landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, where thick conifer forests stretch for miles and the fog rolls in like a living thing, the legends of Bigfoot run deep. Long before modern sightings and grainy footage, Native American tribes told stories of towering hair-covered beings that roamed the mountains in silence. Known by many names, Saskets among the Coast Salish and Skookum among the Chinook, these creatures were not just wild animals, but guardians, watchers, and at times, omens. By the mid-20th century, Bigfoot had moved from folklore to front-page headlines. In the late 1950s, Northern California became ground zero for a flurry of Bigfoot reports, with large footprints discovered near Bluff Creek. These prints measured over 16 inches long, and their depth in the soil suggested an immense weight behind them. Photographs were taken, plaster casts made, and the legend exploded into mainstream consciousness. Around the same time, America was experiencing a surge in reports of unidentified flying objects. After the famous Roswell incident in 1947, sightings of strange lights, disc-shaped crafts, and unexplainable aerial phenomena surged across the country. And curiously, many of these sightings clustered in the same remote regions where Bigfoot was being reported. Dense forests, isolated mountain ranges, and areas of low human population. In 1973, this strange overlap reached a new level in Pennsylvania. In a series of reports investigated by researcher Stan Gordon, numerous residents described not just sightings of Bigfoot, but encounters involving UFOs in the very same areas. In one case, a group of men claimed they saw a glowing, dome-shaped craft hovering near a field. Moments later, they spotted two large, hairy creatures walking upright, their eyes glowing in the beam of their flashlights. The creatures retreated into the woods just as the craft vanished into the night sky. These reports were not isolated. Throughout the 1970s, cases from Ohio, Washington, and British Columbia described similar overlaps: flashing lights in the sky, power outages, and moments later, sightings of hulking creatures moving through the darkness. To many, it seemed too bizarre to be true. Why would a creature rooted in earthy wilderness lore be appearing in tandem with advanced aerial technology? Researchers began taking note of the pattern. In books and conference presentations, the term high strangeness zones emerged, areas where the paranormal seemed to overlap, where ghosts, cryptids, and UFOs were all reported within miles of each other. Was this a coincidence of geography? Or were these phenomena somehow connected, parts of a larger system of unexplained activity? As we look deeper into the earliest sightings and eyewitness accounts, the connection only gets stranger. One of the earliest documented cases that linked Bigfoot with aerial phenomena occurred in 1955 near Mount Rainier, Washington. A local prospector claimed to have seen a glowing silver object silently pass overhead just before a large upright creature emerged from the tree line, paused to stare in his direction, and then vanished into the brush. He described the creature as being nearly 8 feet tall, covered in matted hair, with eyes that reflected the fading daylight like animal glass. While this account received little attention at the time, it would later resurface as one of many stories where two seemingly unrelated mysteries occurred side by side. A decade later, in 1966, a man driving near Point Pleasant, West Virginia, stopped his car to observe a strange pulsing light hovering over the tree canopy. Moments later, he heard rustling in the underbrush and witnessed what he believed was a tall, shadowy figure fleeing into the woods. Though this area would become famous for the Mothman sightings that followed, some locals insisted they had also seen a more solid, hairy creature in the weeks prior, something they believed could not be explained by misidentified birds or hallucination. By the early 1970s, reports began to grow more frequent and more bizarre. In Uniontown, Pennsylvania, a pair of farmers reported seeing a glowing red orb descend into a distant field. When they went to investigate, they claimed to have seen two tall bipedal figures walking toward the light. One of the men fired his rifle, but the creatures did not flinch. Instead, they turned and walked calmly back into the forest. The craft then shot upward and disappeared without a sound. Stan Gordon, a well-respected paranormal investigator, documented dozens of cases like this in southwestern Pennsylvania alone. Witnesses often reported a sulfuric or metallic odor lingering in the air after these events, and in some cases, household electronics or car engines would temporarily stop functioning. It was as if some kind of electromagnetic disturbance accompanied these sightings, a detail that matched similar accounts in traditional UFO encounters. In 1974, a teenager in Oregon claimed he saw a Bigfoot-like creature standing at the edge of a clearing while an orange disc hovered silently above it. The two figures appeared to acknowledge each other. Then the light blinked out, and the creature vanished into the trees. The boy's story was dismissed by police, but several other reports from that same week described low-flying lights and power disruptions in nearby communities. What makes these cases so compelling is their consistency across regions, decades, and witnesses, with no connection to one another. Rural towns from Missouri to British Columbia have reported not just fleeting glimpses of Bigfoot or strange lights, but both, often in close proximity and sometimes within moments of each other. These events continue to confound investigators, not because of their frequency, but because of the persistent pairing of two mysteries that have long been treated as separate. As the stories grew, so did the need to explain them. This led to deeper investigations, not just into what people were seeing, but why these phenomena seemed to be linked. In the wake of the growing number of overlapping sightings, researchers began documenting and categorizing the cases more systematically. Stan Gordon's investigations in Pennsylvania set the groundwork for a new wave of inquiry. He assembled teams of volunteers who would respond to sightings in real time, collecting soil samples, interviewing witnesses, and testing for radiation levels and magnetic anomalies. In many cases, the physical evidence was puzzling, if not outright disturbing. One of the most intriguing cases came from Fayette County, Pennsylvania, in the fall of 1973. A local farmer reported a glowing craft landing in one of his fields. When a group of armed men from the community went to investigate, they found the area bathed in a dim green light. Two large, hairy figures stood near the edge of the clearing, their eyes reflecting the unnatural glow. One of the men fired a rifle, and one of the creatures raised its arm in what was later described as a slow, almost mechanical gesture. Seconds later, the craft emitted a high-pitched tone, and both figures disappeared into the darkness. When the team returned the next day, the grass was scorched in a circular pattern, and all plant life inside the ring was dead. Despite the compelling details, skeptics dismissed the incident as mass hysteria or misinterpretation. But then, similar patterns began appearing in other parts of the country. In the forests of Washington state, government biologists investigating reports of a strange odor and animal carcasses found tree branches twisted and snapped in unnatural patterns. In the same region, a hunter captured audio of low-frequency growls that experts could not match to any known animal. At the same time, several residents in the area reported seeing hovering lights and silent triangular craft during the nights. The growls were recorded. In British Columbia, a researcher named Thomas Steenberg documented an incident in which a park ranger found massive footprints near a remote lake, alongside scorched soil and melted snow in a near-perfect circle. Satellite data later confirmed that a heat signature had been present in that area for nearly 45 minutes during the night in question, despite freezing temperatures. Attempts to debunk the Bigfoot and UFO link usually focused on separating the phenomena. Some argued that people were simply conflating unrelated events, especially under the influence of fear or excitement. But the data showed a different pattern: temporal and geographic overlap, consistent physical markers like radiation or electromagnetic disruption, and similar descriptions from witnesses with no prior exposure to each other's stories. The government, at least officially, showed little interest. Freedom of Information Act requests often returned heavily redacted documents. In some cases, they came back with entire pages missing. A few whistleblowers claimed that overlapping sightings were categorized under different programs, making connections harder to trace. One alleged that cryptid encounters were filed under wildlife management, while UFOs were relegated to aerospace phenomena, ensuring that no unified investigation would take place. Private researchers filled the gap. By the 1990s, independent investigators were using infrared drones, trail cameras, and audio sensors to try and capture simultaneous evidence. What they found was inconsistent, but still troubling. Sudden power failures, interference with electronics, disembodied vocalizations, and sometimes fleeting visual contact with both unexplained aerial lights and large bipedal figures in the same frame, never long enough to be definitive, but always long enough to raise questions. The deeper these investigators looked, the more it seemed that something was deliberately hiding its tracks. Whether through advanced technology, natural camouflage, or something stranger, both Bigfoot and the craft remained elusive, leaving behind only fragments and never the full picture. As researchers pushed further into the strange overlap between Bigfoot sightings and unidentified aerial phenomena, the theories became more complex and, in some cases, more unsettling. Traditional explanations for Bigfoot painted it as a biological creature, perhaps a relict hominid, a cousin of Gigantopithecus, or an undiscovered primate species that had managed to avoid detection for centuries. Likewise, UFOs were often interpreted as advanced spacecraft from other planets, guided by beings with technology far beyond human understanding. But when the two began appearing together, some investigators proposed that both might belong to the same phenomenon, or even be aspects of a single intelligence. One theory suggested that Bigfoot was not a physical being in the traditional sense, but rather an interdimensional entity. Proponents of this idea pointed to the creature's reported ability to vanish without a trace, the frequent lack of physical evidence, and the strange electromagnetic disturbances that accompanied many encounters. This interdimensional hypothesis was further fueled by the concept of portals or rifts in space-time, areas where reality thins, allowing beings from other planes of existence to cross into ours. Witnesses in some cases described both Bigfoot and unidentified craft vanishing in a blink, as if stepping through invisible doors. In one account from Idaho, a man hiking alone claimed to see a tall, hairy figure walk into a clearing, pause, and then dissolve into a shimmer of light, followed by the sudden appearance of a pulsing orb overhead. Others took a different approach, suggesting that Bigfoot could be a form of biological drone, an engineered being used by extraterrestrial intelligence to explore or interact with the physical environment. This theory came out of repeated reports of Bigfoot showing no fear of vehicles or weapons, behaving in ways that suggested it lacked self-preservation instinct. Some researchers speculated that the creatures may be genetically modified organisms, possibly harvested or released by UFO occupants for unknown purposes. There were also spiritual interpretations. In several indigenous traditions, the hairy man is not considered a beast, but a guardian or messenger between worlds. The simultaneous appearance of lights in the sky and forest-dwelling beings was not new. It had simply been reframed through modern lenses. In these worldviews, both Bigfoot and strange aerial lights might be signs of imbalance, warnings, or manifestations of sacred power beyond human comprehension. Skeptics offered more grounded ideas. Some believed the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs was purely psychological. They argued that the same cognitive processes responsible for seeing lights in the sky might lead people to misinterpret shadows or animal movement as a cryptid encounter. In regions where local legends were already strong, a single unusual event might trigger a cascade of misidentification and exaggeration. Still, this explanation failed to address the specificity of overlapping details. Independent witnesses described similar behaviors, sounds, and physical effects. Both phenomena tended to disrupt electronics, occur near water or mineral-rich ground, and leave behind oddly radioactive soil or elevated magnetic readings. In the absence of concrete answers, the theories grew more imaginative. Could these sightings be tests, psyops orchestrated to measure public reaction? Was Bigfoot a terrestrial species being abducted just like humans? Or was humanity simply glimpsing pieces of a larger, hidden ecosystem that defies traditional categories of animal, machine, and spirit? None of these ideas could be proven. Yet none could be easily dismissed either. Each theory added a new layer to a mystery that resisted simplification. The deeper one looked, the more the boundary between cryptid and cosmic blurred, hinting at something much older and far stranger than we were prepared to understand. In the 21st century, the connection between Bigfoot and unidentified flying objects has only intensified, fueled by the rise of smartphones, drone footage, and online platforms where encounters are shared instantly and globally. While many of these viral clips are hoaxes or misidentifications, a growing number of reports show patterns too consistent to ignore. One of the most striking modern cases occurred in rural Washington state in the year 2015. A group of campers near the Olympic National Forest recorded a loud, low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate through the trees. Minutes later, strange orbs of bluish-white light appeared above the tree line, hovering silently. As the lights dimmed, they reported hearing heavy bipedal footsteps nearby. No figure was seen, but one camper caught a brief thermal signature on a handheld infrared camera. Tall, humanoid, and moving upright through dense foliage without making a sound. Later that same year, in northern Georgia, a man posted trail cam footage showing a large, dark figure moving near his deer stand just minutes before a bright flash lit up the surrounding trees. While the footage was grainy, the timestamps confirmed both events occurred in sequence. The uploader described a strange metallic taste in the air that lingered for hours, a phenomenon also reported in several older encounters involving both Bigfoot and UFO sightings. More recently, in the year 2021, residents near Mount Shasta, California, reported a wave of high strangeness activity. Locals claimed to see tall, shadowy figures on remote roads, often followed by sightings of silent triangular craft. Some reported losing time, arriving home hours later than expected without explanation. Others heard deep, rhythmic drumming sounds with no known source. The mountain, already steeped in Native American legend and spiritual lore, became the center of renewed paranormal interest. Social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube have become unexpected allies in tracking modern encounters. Dozens of creators now specialize in analyzing, mapping, and connecting sightings across regions. In one digital investigation, a researcher plotted over 300 sightings where Bigfoot and aerial lights were reported in the same 72-hour window. The results showed clusters in places like northern Michigan, southern Oregon, and the Appalachian foothills of North Carolina. One particularly compelling case came from a retired police officer in Montana who shared his story anonymously. He described responding to a call about strange lights over a remote farm. When he arrived, the landowner was visibly shaken, claiming a tall creature had been watching the property from just beyond the fence line. The officer saw no creature, but confirmed the presence of scorch marks in the grass and said his patrol car's electronics briefly malfunctioned. Despite his law enforcement background, he confessed he could not explain what he experienced that night. Even amateur investigators are now using sophisticated tools to document these events. EMF detectors, thermal cameras, spectrum analyzers, and drone-mounted sensors. While the data is rarely definitive, it often reveals anomalies that defy explanation. Sudden cold spots in warm climates, distorted compass readings, and animals behaving erratically all continue to surface in areas with both types of sightings. And yet, with all this modern technology, neither Bigfoot nor the crafts are any closer to being captured, caught, or confirmed. They continue to appear just beyond reach, on the edge of the frame, the edge of the forest, or the edge of understanding. They remain evasive, almost as if designed to be uncatchable, and yet never absent for long. Their presence lingers in modern consciousness not because we understand them, but because we do not. The cultural impact of the Bigfoot and UFO connection has grown far beyond rural sightings and late-night radio shows. It has shaped belief systems, inspired films, sparked debates, and become a persistent thread in the modern mythology of the unknown. In many communities where these events are reported, the experiences leave lasting psychological and emotional marks, often more profound than the physical evidence left behind. For some witnesses, seeing both a craft in the sky and a massive, upright creature in the woods is not just shocking, it is life-altering. People describe a collapse of certainty, a moment where everything they thought they knew about the natural world feels suddenly incomplete. Many report a kind of spiritual disorientation afterward, struggling to make sense of what they experienced. Some isolate themselves, avoiding discussion for fear of ridicule. Others become obsessed, drawn into lifelong searches for answers they may never find. In small towns with repeated sightings, the effect is communal. Stories get passed down, shared at diners, gas stations, and fire halls. Children grow up with warnings about the hairy man in the woods, or the lights that come after dark. These legends shape behavior, local identity, and even tourism. In some places, statues of Bigfoot are paired with murals of alien ships. Gift shops sell t-shirts depicting both in a kind of folklore fusion that reflects what locals have come to accept, that in certain places, strange things simply happen. Media has played a powerful role in reinforcing the connection. Documentaries, fiction films, and podcasts have embraced the overlapping mystery. Television shows have aired dramatic recreations of joint sightings. In popular culture, the idea of Bigfoot stepping out of a glowing beam of light is no longer considered absurd. It is an image many recognize immediately. The mystery has evolved from isolated encounters to a shared story etched into the public imagination. Psychologists have examined why these dual sightings resonate so deeply. Some propose that Bigfoot and UFOs represent two sides of a larger fear, the fear of the unknown that exists both above and below us. One is primal, rooted in the forest and our ancient fear of predators in the dark. The other is cosmic, a reminder that we are not alone in the vastness above. When both appear together, it creates a complete circle of unease, suggesting that nowhere is entirely safe, not even in the silence of the wilderness or under the open sky. Religious interpretations have also emerged. Some see these beings as messengers, signs, or even tests from other realms. Others believe they are connected to ancient prophecy, that sightings are increasing because something larger is coming, an event, a shift, or a revelation that humanity is not yet ready to face. The mystery becomes not just paranormal, but metaphysical. Artists and musicians have also been drawn into the mystery. Paintings, poems, and songs have been inspired by the idea of the wild man and the flying craft. Some view the imagery as symbolic, representing the tension between the natural and the technological, the human and the unknown. The sightings have become archetypes, woven into our modern folklore just as deeply as dragons, angels, or demons once were. Above all, the cultural and psychological impact of these overlapping phenomena reveals one thing clearly: they are not going away. Whether real, imagined, misunderstood, or something in between, the stories persist. They live in whispered accounts, online forums, late-night calls, and childhood memories. They remind us that for all our science and certainty, mystery still walks among us. Sometimes in the trees, sometimes in the sky, and sometimes both. Across decades of sightings, one thread binds these accounts together: the persistence of strange, specific details that continue to defy explanation. These recurring elements, when viewed collectively, paint a pattern too deliberate to dismiss, yet too elusive to fully grasp. While each witness tells a slightly different story, many describe the same eerie sequence of events. In case after case, the arrival of unexplained aerial lights is followed by a shift in the environment. Birds fall silent, insects stop buzzing, a heavy, unnatural stillness settles over the area. Then come the sounds, deep, chest-vibrating hums or high-pitched tones that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sometimes the lights move in calculated patterns across the sky, changing direction instantly, defying known laws of motion. In the same moments, witnesses report tall figures watching from the tree line, only half seen but deeply felt. One of the most consistent physical signs is the presence of large footprints, often measuring 15 to 18 inches long. These prints frequently end abruptly, as if the creature disappeared mid-stride. Investigators have found them in snow, mud, and deep forest floor, too deep to be faked without heavy machinery. And yet, they rarely lead anywhere. They begin and vanish in ways that suggest more than simple physical movement. In areas where lights have hovered or landed, similar footprints have been discovered in burned or scorched soil. Another shared element is electromagnetic interference. Batteries drain without explanation. GPS devices fail. Radios emit static or distorted voices. In some homes near sightings, light bulbs burst and televisions switch on by themselves. These disturbances mirror effects long associated with close encounters of the aerial kind, but their occurrence during Bigfoot reports complicates the picture. Why would a supposedly biological creature trigger the same technological failures as an unknown craft? In multiple cases, strange odors have also been noted. Witnesses describe sulfur, ozone, or a burnt metal smell lingering in the air after the events. Dogs often react violently, barking, cowering, or fleeing, minutes before a sighting takes place. In one case from Utah, a family reported seeing a glowing orb hovering near their barn. The next morning, their livestock were found clustered in a tight circle, trembling but unharmed, and the surrounding grass was flattened in a perfect ring. Another recurring pattern involves missing time. People recall looking at the clock, seeing the lights or the figure, and then suddenly finding themselves somewhere else, or hours later, without memory of what happened in between. This is a hallmark of traditional alien abduction reports, but it has also appeared in encounters where no craft was seen, only a large humanoid and environmental disruption. This suggests that the phenomena may share deeper mechanics beyond mere coincidence. Perhaps the most unsettling commonality is the emotional effect. Witnesses often describe an overwhelming sense of dread, not tied to the visuals, but to something deeper, a presence that feels intrusive, ancient, and powerful. Some feel as if they were being watched long before they noticed the lights or the creature. Others speak of dreams or visions following the events, often filled with symbols they cannot explain. These patterns, though individually explainable by skepticism, collectively build a framework of high strangeness. The strange lights, the electromagnetic pulses, the footprints that vanish, the shared fear, the missing hours. None of these alone prove a connection, but taken together, they suggest a mystery unfolding on multiple levels, using symbols and signs that cross categories we once thought were separate. And at the heart of it all stands the unanswerable question: what kind of intelligence or mechanism could produce such a consistent but evasive blend of signals, encounters, and effects across generations and geography? Whatever the answer, it is not hiding. It is revealing itself, slowly, deliberately, and only to those willing to see the patterns in the dark. If we allow ourselves, even briefly, to accept the possibility that these encounters are more than coincidence, then the implications stretch far beyond folklore. They open doors into realms of possibility that challenge not only science, but the nature of reality itself. What if Bigfoot is not just a flesh and blood creature hiding in the woods, but a being that moves between dimensions, appearing only when conditions are right? What if those lights in the sky are not here to study humans, but something else entirely? Some researchers have speculated that the Earth may host areas of altered reality, windows where time, space, and perception are thinner. These could be ancient fault lines of energy, remnants of past civilizations, or even natural gateways. In those places, the laws that govern our world might briefly lose their grip, allowing glimpses of other realities to bleed through. If this is true, then what people are seeing may not be creatures or ships at all, but echoes or visitors from a different layer of existence. The question then becomes, why do they appear together? Could Bigfoot be a guardian of these portals, a natural intelligence that resides in liminal spaces, emerging only when disturbances occur? Or is it the other way around? Could unidentified flying objects be drawn to areas where this creature manifests, curious, observant, or even engaged in a study of it rather than us? Another theory proposes that Bigfoot and the crafts are not separate, but different forms of the same phenomenon, shape-shifting expressions of a single consciousness interacting with the physical world in ways we cannot yet comprehend. This theory draws on centuries-old spiritual beliefs in beings that can appear in multiple forms, from glowing orbs to monstrous apparitions to humanoid shadows. These manifestations may reflect the expectations or fears of the observer, molded by perception as much as reality. A more chilling possibility emerges in the overlap with abduction experiences. In some rare cases, witnesses who encountered Bigfoot-like beings also reported missing time, dreams of clinical environments, or sudden unexplained scars. What if, instead of collecting humans, something has been studying these forest-dwelling beings all along, and we have simply been in the way? And if we entertain the most extreme view, that both Bigfoot and the unidentified craft are part of a long-running, coordinated presence on Earth, then everything changes. Perhaps these are not random sightings, but scheduled appearances. Not chance encounters, but tests. Perhaps the overlapping appearances are not anomalies, but the symptoms of something operating just beneath the threshold of awareness, showing only what it wants seen. Of course, these speculations remain just that. But speculation itself holds power. It opens space for the unknown to be considered, explored, and taken seriously. When separate mysteries begin to mirror each other, they form a pattern, and patterns demand explanation, even if they lead us far from what is familiar or safe. In that darkness, in those patterns, the human mind begins to ask questions not just about what is out there, but about what we are. What kind of world have we inherited? And what might be watching us from the trees and the sky, waiting for us to finally connect the dots? In the stillness that follows a sighting, when the lights have faded and the forest returns to silence, something remains. Not just a memory, but a presence. For those who have seen both the sky burn with light and the shadows move through the trees, there is no going back. The experience carves a scar into belief, one that resists explanation and outlasts logic. Whether Bigfoot is a remnant of an ancient species, an interdimensional traveler, or something we have yet to even conceptualize, its connection to unidentified aerial phenomena reveals a hidden architecture of the unknown. These are not isolated stories. They are threads in a deeper fabric, one that stretches across time, place, and culture. And like all true mysteries, they do not offer answers. They demand new questions. Why are these beings appearing more frequently near areas of environmental disturbance, magnetic anomalies, or sacred ground? Why do the same sounds, smells, and sensations accompany their presence, regardless of location? Why are so many witnesses left with the sense that something far older and more intelligent was watching, not just during the encounter, but before it ever began? There is something methodical in the way these phenomena manifest. Something deliberate in how they reveal just enough to unsettle, but never enough to be caught. As if the mystery itself is the message, as if the presence of the unknown is the point. In that sense, the link between Bigfoot and UFOs may not be a riddle to solve, but a boundary to cross, a test of how much strangeness we are willing to confront before we stop explaining it away. In many ways, this is the oldest story humanity tells, the story of the thing just beyond the firelight. The light just beyond the stars. And perhaps, in our search to explain what walks through the trees or glides across the night sky, we are not just seeking the unknown, we are remembering it. Because what haunts us may not be that we do not understand. It may be that somewhere, deep within, we already do. Thanks for listening. This has been Paranormal Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, gain access to bonus content, and unlock our entire library of video podcasts, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.